Oh, of course. I forgot the fuel lines. Alright, I forgot the fuel lines, so I'm just going to crash. And all this video is for nothing. Sigh. Well, let's put out the landing gear. Alright, so here I am in Kerbal Space Program, taking off in my brand new rocket with a little lunar lander attached to the top and a few stages in here. I'm gonna show you guys how to navigate using, using the in-game UI. So basically, the first thing to note is the keys section. So you want to watch your fuel here, you want to watch your altitude here, the meters per second right here, right above the nav ball is key, but also using this nav ball for everything is key. Just attach those guys there. Alright, so first rule of thumb to note, this says 90 degrees on it, so this is the 90 degree line. This is east on Kerbal. This is a Kerbal relative ball right now. And this circle here is the 45 degree circle. So if you want to go in a 45 degree direction east, you just use the WASD keys to move this here, right down here, and look at that, we're facing 45 degree angle east. So one rule of thumb is when you hit 10 kilometers, as I just did, you want to be heading in a 45 degree angle. It's better if you ease into it over time, but if you just want to wait till 10 kilometers rolls around and then go there, then that's fine too. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to the map. First thing I do in the map is I reopen the nav ball so I can retain control of my ship. I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to watch the apoapsis of our ship. So you can see in 1 minute, you see right below there, it says in 1 minute we're going to be at 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers. So this is the key. You want to be out of the atmosphere, so I typically wait till it says about 100 kilometers, and then I use the X key to kill the engine. So 100. There you go. 102 kilometers. In 2 minutes, 30 seconds, we're going to hit 100 kilometers up. It's decreasing right now because we're still in the atmosphere, so I'm losing some of my momentum. So the whole key to Kerbal Space Program is using the nav ball. Never fly your ship here. Never use the WASD keys to try to control the ship, because if you've rotated the camera, you will have forgotten which key means which direction. But no matter which way you rotate the camera, the nav ball always stays in the same orientation, so you're good to go there. Alright, I'm just going to quickly extend some panels here. Whoops, not the ladder. Don't want to extend the ladder. So I'm going to be flying around the moon, around the dark side, and I want to be able to see my ship. So I've got a whole bunch of lights mounted to it and some batteries and some solar panels to keep it going. This just helps you keep an eye on your ship and where it's going and what's happening. All right. So the whole key to Kerbal Space Program is flying with the nav ball, as I said, but how do you know which direction to go in? Well, there's these nice little markers you can add. So right here at the apoapsis, we're going to be at 99 kilometers up. You can add a maneuver node. So I'm saying I'm going to make a maneuver here, and I want to, instead of crashing back into the ocean, I want to make this an orbit. So you just grab the acceleration handle here, you drag it out, and you can see, whoop, there we go. You just play with these handles until you get the orbit you want. So this orbit's going to have a low point of 99 kilometers and a high point of 90. That's not quite high enough, so you just increase it a bit. There's 100 kilometers and 95 kilometers. Sure, that's well out of the atmosphere. It's not quite perfect, but it's a good maneuver. And you can see I'm rapidly approaching where I'm going to have to make the maneuver. And you see down on the bottom here it says, indeed, in 30 seconds I'm going to have to make this maneuver. I've been chatting too much, so I'm probably going to miss my window. But it's saying here I'm going to have to make a 21 second burn. I'm going to have to add 1200 meters per second of acceleration in 18 seconds. And this blue marker on the nav ball is the direction I have to point myself to make this happen. So it's telling me all the information I need to know. You just have to line up this blue marker here, and then once this T minus gets down to 0, then you want to get this burn going. So 1 and 0 and pow, there we go, accelerating up. So I've just engaged my engines. and you can see the amount of acceleration I need is decreasing over time. And once it hits 0, I should be good. Oh, my engine's just died, so let's detach and keep accelerating. Now, waiting till it says T-0 is actually the wrong way to do it. That's a bad thing, because what it's expecting when it's doing the math, when it's doing the calculation, the game wants you to put all the acceleration, all 1,200 units of acceleration I needed to get into orbit. It wanted it to be dumped in an instant, like at exactly 0. But you can't do that. So what you should do is you should divide the time by 2. So I'm just double checking my orbit here. 80 kilometers and 110. That's a bit low. So I'm going to accelerate a bit more manually. I'm just adding the accelerator, and I'm watching my orbit here. Sure, that's good enough. Bit high on the far side, but that'll work. All right. So I want to go to the moon. The moon, the speed we're traveling, the moon does a quarter rotation by the time we can make it out to its orbit. So it's going to be up about here. So I need to add a maneuver node on the opposite side, which is down here. So you just add a maneuver node, and if you accelerate, it will extend the opposite end of the node out. So we see it extending out there. Let's zoom out a bit more. And a bit more, and there we go. There's an encounter with the moon at 163 kilometers. So you can play with this a little bit, but as long as you hit it, you're good enough for now. So that's the maneuver I'm going to make. You can see down here I need 800 meters per second so that'll be a 31-second burn, and I need to do it in 29 minutes. So a good thing to do is just point your ship here at the blue target and then do time acceleration. So I need to do a 31-second burn. So as I was saying before, you want to split the difference. So at T-minus 15 seconds, I should start my burn, and hopefully I'll finish at T plus 15. So I'll do half the burn before the time, half the burn after the time. Hopefully I don't miss it, as I always do. I'm about to miss it. All right, T-minus 15 seconds, starting my burn. All right, so this should be a 30-second burn. Doop, boop, boop. If you want to switch to the map while this goes on, you know it's going to be a 30-second burn. You know this is counting down, so you're pretty safe here. And you can see your orbit is actually moving. So that is your actual orbit here, the blue one. This dotted line is the one you're aiming for. You can see as it goes forward, I've got my finger on the X key, ready to kill it. And done. There we go. So you hit the X button here to clear the maneuver node. Oh, or you can click on it here if you zoom in. This is the maneuver you just did. You can click on it and hit the X here, or you can hit the X down here to clear it out. It just cleans up the display a little bit. And you can see I'm going to make this big arc, and then I'm going to, yeah, I was a little bit off. My closest point to the moon is going to be about 12,000 kilometers. That's a little bit far out. I want to get a little bit closer to the moon. So the best place to make that maneuver, the best place to adjust your trajectory is halfway between. So right about here, I'm going to add a maneuver. And that maneuver is going to, well, you can also click on the moon here and say set as target. It'll make it green, and it gives you some extra markers to help you out with your approach. So I'm going to just play with this a little bit and see if I can't get a closer approach. There you go, 250,000 kilometers, or 250 kilometers. 200. 130 and 78 kilometers from the moon. That's much better. So you can see by making the adjustment midway at the midpoint between the moon and Kerbal, we're far enough away from Kerbal so that it's not influencing us, and we're far enough away from the moon that a minor change will give us a dramatic difference. So this maneuver to get me from 12,000 kilometers to 78 kilometers is only going to require 1.8 meters per second of acceleration. Like, that's tiny. That's super tiny. You could also adjust how your orbit's going to end up by playing with these up and down handles as well if you wanted to. But I recommend not at this point. All right, so let's just revert that back there. All right, so nice minor burn, and it's going to be in this direction towards this blue marker here. Here we go. All right. And we have to make this burn in 1 hour and 32 minutes. So time for more time acceleration. So this burn's going to take us less than a second. When you're this far out in deep space, the maneuvers will actually not matter too much if you miss them a little bit. You don't have to be extra precise, but let's see what we got. Yep, 84 kilometers. That's good. All right. So the next point we want to pay attention to, let's do some more time acceleration. When we transition to the moon encounter, this point right here in the map, which is going to happen in a day, the physics engine actually changes how your trajectory is moving. So you want to not be in time acceleration when you cross this point right here. So I'm just got my finger on the time acceleration button. I'm going to slow us down once we get here. If you don't slow down before you cross this, then you can actually warp into the moon or into an eccentric orbit, and it's really hard to recover from. So if you cross this line here, nice and slow, you actually see that it adjusts. Boom, there it goes. It adjusts to a relative orbit to the moon now. And there we go. This is a more familiar sort of orbit trajectory here. And if we want to turn this into a proper orbit, we just click here, add a maneuver. We want to slow down. And there we go. We could see it turning into an orbit. Right, 85 kilometers, 82 kilometers on this side, 179 on that side, so let's round that out a bit. There we go, 175, sure, good enough. So let's get into orbit there. You know what, let's this maneuver node's getting in the way. I'm gonna focus on the moon. There we go. All right, so I want to land in this crater roundabout. So you can see my planned trajectory. The yellow dots are a bit too low. So I'm going to click on our maneuver node, and I'm going to adjust it with this other handle. Here we go. Much nicer. So that's a nice trajectory right over the top of the crater. And if you want to land on the crater, then what you do is on the opposite side of the crater, right over here, you can actually stack multiple maneuver nodes. So I'm going to add another one here. I'm just going to tell it to slow down. You can see it showing me that I'm going to be at an altitude of about 8 kilometers right at the far side of the crater. That's about right. You can actually slow it down a little bit more. There we go. You can see the dotted line is actually disappearing into the crater. That means that's where we're going to crash. That's where we're going to impact. But we want to do a nice landing with slowing down and, you know, all that fancy stuff. So I'm going to actually leave us in the air on the far edge of the crater because we're going to start decelerating all along this path here. In fact, we can show that. So in the rim of the crater right here, we can add another maneuver. And here we could say, let's slow down some more. There we go. And there, if we slow down a whole lot right there, you see our dot is disappearing right into the crater. So you can see our trajectory right now as it stands is this blue line, and we've added 3 maneuvers. One here, which turns us into this yellow trajectory, one here for the purple, and one here for the green. And that lands us right there into the middle. So down here on the display it says in 1 hour we have to make an 8-second burn. That's the first node. As soon as we click this X to clear it, it'll automatically set up for the next node for us. So let's do this. You got to be careful as you enter orbit because it starts loading higher res textures, and if your game stutters, you could miss your node, your maneuver node. And I just time accelerated past the maneuver node too. Oh well, let's see if this still works out. Alright, so I'm just accelerating up, just aiming at this blue dot here. And presto. So I clear that one out. I'm just going to look at the map and just double check that everything's still lining up okay. And yeah, it looks like we're still on target even though I missed the maneuver. Alright, so the next one is the yellow burn here. So let's do that one. Let's try not to miss this maneuver this time. Alright, 20 seconds left. Alright, let's do this. This is going to take us out of orbit and into a descent. There's the burn. Alright. Success. So it's already queued up the next burn for us. Let's just double check the map, see if we're on target. And yes, it looks like we're scheduled to touch down right in the middle here. Right, so let's line up with the blue marker. See, as the textures are loading, I'm starting to chunk up a little bit, so I've got to slow down my time acceleration. Oh boy, and look at that, look how close we are now. You have to be careful on shallow approaches like this because there might be a mountain that's, say, 6 kilometers tall, and then you're really screwed if you hit that. But looks like we're on a good trajectory now. Alright, this is going to be our final burn. So you notice our burn is overlaid on the retrograde, the green X vector. And that means we're just straight up slowing down. So let's do that. You know what, I'm going to cancel this burn because this ridge right here, the edge of the crater, is pretty tall. I'm going to wait until we clear that before I fully decelerate. I don't want to slam into the side of it. Let's see, where's this crater? Well, I guess this crater isn't as deep as I thought it was. We're kind of at the peak right now. Yeah, there we go. Just coming down the ridge. Oh, it's rough in here. It's going to be hard finding a nice flat landing spot, but we're pretty much almost done. So, I'm just going to kill the maneuver node. I'm going to do this manually now. So the keys here are this little green retrograde node. This is the opposite direction of our velocity. So if we just accelerate along that vector, we will slow down. You'll also notice that we're going at almost 0.5 kilometers per second relative to the surface. That's way too fast. So we just want to slow down. That's it, first step. So I'm just going to full on accelerate in this direction. It doesn't take a lot. Look how fast this is decreasing. But as long as we keep this retrograde vector right in the middle of our little dot here. Oh, we're out of fuel. So let's switch to our final stage here. And keep accelerating. There we go. So I'm just keeping this lined up until we stop. So our surface velocity is still 100 meters per second. I'm just keeping our retrograde vector lined up with the center. It's going to drift a little bit. And there we go. Look at that. We are stopping. We're almost done. 30, 20, 10, and whoop. You can see the retrograde vector slipped way up to the top here because we are now just falling. We're falling directly towards the Earth. So instead of trying to fly the ship with WASD, just fly the ball. So if you point this yellow dot to the green X, you will, by definition, be pointing straight up. And look at that, a nice, perfect downward vector. All right, so I'm going to want to deploy my landing gear. Whoop. There we go. And if we wanted to be super safe, you'd probably retract at least the solar panels while we're doing this, but we're good. All right, so I'm going straight down. You kind of want to look for your shadow to give you a reference point or have lights if you're landing in a dark area. But you mainly just look at this velocity vector and you play with your throttle to slow your descent. Now you don't want to slow too early. Oh, there's a shadow right there. Because the gravity will just pick you up and slow you down again. But if you start drifting, it's because you're like left or right. It'll be like I'm doing right now. It's because you're not flying the ball here, right? So as long as you don't look at the ship at all, you just look at this ball and you look at the surface speed and look at that perfect touchdown. You can extend the, on a bit of a slope. Oh, that was a little bit harder than I thought, but hey, that works. Just extend that ladder out through the light. Nice and realistic like. There we go. Successful mission. Huzzah.